Yeah.
And I think that, we're kind of dealing with the end of an era where a lot of people don't want to accept responsibility for control. I know that sounds really weird because a lot of people feel like they have no control. You have a volition, you have the ability to take in information and decide. You have control over lots of things. But I think that over the course of this, again, last 10 years or so, that kind of degraded. And I kind of noticed that a lot of people who do that are, who co-created the degradation were the people who decided that, okay, here's the matrix. You're just an object adrift in the universe, and that is the secret of all reality. That it's kind of weird because usually it's the person who says you don't have control, nobody has control, who also wants to be the one to teach everyone and wake everyone up at the same time. Like, okay, what's that really all about?
I, I think that, and you're gonna probably laugh. I have to say, the Oracle from the Matrix said it amazingly, which is we are all here to do what we are all here to do. And
I'm
I
not
think,
saying the Matrix is bad. I like the
oh,
Matrix. I
fantastic.
do like the movie. I thought it was really, really good. I just also think that,
It's not exactly a course in,
well, I
in
think that it can be, I think it could be a very interesting inspirational start. Everyone has literature that inspires them. Read the Silmarillion, watch the Never-Ending Story, watch even more kitschy things like Practical Magic that can be also incredibly helpful. Watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, by the way, not the 2003 one, but the 2007 one. There's all kinds of media out there. Like the muses are everywhere. It's
oh,
just, I think that if you take the media that you consume and turn it into your be all end all, and you don't allow any more or any more expansion, you become turtled, complacent, and again, kind of adrift. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to another installment of the Integrative Mysticism Podcast. I am back with Matthew Stapley. Fair warning, I am not drunk, but I am at what I call a surly tired stage. I have not had any alcohol. Sometimes when I get kind of tired, then I get kind of wired, then I get a little loose. And so get ready. Matthew, you have been a reader for a very, very long time. You've got over 30,000 followers on Facebook. We've both been around the block. We've both been on social media reading for, over a decade each. And so when people are asking, am I ready?
mhm.
That's kind of one of the things where it's like, all right, so we got a lot of people coming into this and they want to do this. I want to do that. I want to be in service. How do they know? How do we talk about, all right, how do we sit this person down? Because you and I would have very different ways of sitting people down.
We
Um, how would we sit this person down and maybe talk about readiness, preparedness, being in a position to serve not only whoever they're serving, but also do a service to the craft they're serving with?
it's such an interesting question because when I think back to me starting out, I was 17 years old. That was the first time people started coming and offering me money for readings,
Right.
um, in any kind of regular way. And I think that people who are called to service, like it's kind of, I believe that we're kind of almost hardwired for it on some level. We feel that connection from a young age, even if it's not mystical per se at a young age. For many of us it is, but for those of us that we just feel in service to helping humanity, I think that we kind of know on some level that whatever we're going to do with our lives has an element of helping the world around us. That said, I know for me, when I started out in this work, I didn't have anybody to consult with. In fact, at 18 years old, I had kind of people coming to me asking me to show them how to ground themselves and shield themselves and things like that. I think, how do we know we're ready? I think people get called to service all the time. I think the real question is, how do we prepare ourselves to be of service the best that we can be, right? Because a lot of people want to do this work, and a lot of people have the talent, but talent and experience are two different things. And I know for me starting out, um, was able to read for people and things like that. But had I sort of had a little bit more experience under my belt, I think starting out it would have probably been better. I think the big thing that I see a lot of, as somebody who also teaches development and speaks on these subjects a lot, one thing that I've seen a lot of that I think is a little bit on the concerning side sometimes is people wanting to do the work for other people but not yet able to do the work for themselves, and I was so guilty of that when I started out. So I mean, I can't really
Well, I
be.
think I think you're touching on an important point there, because there I think there is an advantage to um, taking small steps.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I'm teaching tarot, I just rebooted the Practical Tarot Tutor series here on Integrative Mysticism. We're on installment 2, and so we've kind of gone through all the basic meanings of all the cards, and my next installment's going to be doing demo readings and things like that. But in the
Awesome.
very first video, I was like, look, you do not want to be a reader
Mm.
or a healer who is basically just doing this to make money from home, and you're spending the entirety of your career trying to stay one step ahead of a community that is developing probably faster than you. And I think that that is very evident, I think, in today's world. We've got there's kind of an infestation of a lot of hobbyists and trenders that kind of missed, I think, some of the virtues of being able to kind of workshop your process and do, when I first started, I was doing readings in person in a shop in a town called Everett, Washington. This was a long, long time ago.
Mm.
Um, and it was very much old school style. Here's the psychic in the reading room, crystals and candles and all of this good stuff. And I try to bring that to my work now, even though I'm, on a webcam on the internet and all of that. I would definitely maybe even try to remake that room if I could, with, maybe once I move to a better space. But but I think that the onus is always upon us to honor our work. And I think that if a person is just running on intrigue and enthusiasm, those don't always go in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think that yeah, the benefit of maybe starting smaller and taking smaller steps. You've got to crawl before you walk, you've got to walk before you run, you've got to run before you fly. And I'm not saying that it has to take 10 years or it has to take 5 years or even that it has to take 2 years. But I think that I think that maybe the subject that we're talking about now, we might as well just kind of, parse it out. Okay, when are you being in service versus when are you not being in service? It's like, okay, how do you know when you're ready? All right, well, how do you know when you're doing the right thing? Maybe that's the question.
Yes.
That's more important than how do you know when you're ready? Because I think that we're at a stage right now where I think being overly diplomatic,
Mm.
it's too late for that. I think these sort of cautious, gentle, um, hey, moments are about 7 years too late.
Yeah.
I think that maybe, it's time to go, look, if you want to get into this, like, this is real. First off, you got to know it's real. You can't be treating it like it's a self-help metaphor.
Yeah.
Magic is real, psychic ability is real, the multiverse is real, spirits are real, all of that. You first, if you are not sure of that, don't read.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't go out and be an energy healer. Don't go out and just kind of be like, well, this is all a metaphor for touch therapy, or this is all a metaphor for talk therapy. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. That is already a trend that kind of came and is dying now, and it's coming
Thank
under
you.
very heavy scrutiny.
Yeah.
Very, very heavy scrutiny. The pool of people who want that, support that, especially if you're trying to make money off of it, is shrinking so rapidly, because we're at a bit of a reform
Yeah.
at this time, of getting rid of all of that, thank goodness. You don't want to go in on that one. That's, don't climb on that half of the Titanic that hasn't sunk yet, you know. Um, but yeah, I would say first things first, are you at home in the world of the spirit, magic, energy, the multidimensional depth? Are you at home there? You got to be there. It's got to be something organic and natural.
Yes, exactly. And I think part of what contributed to this, like, I feel so two ways about it actually, but I think part of the thing that contributed to all of this wave of of maybe we could call them unprepared practitioners, I think is fair. Um because I think for a lot of them, like the passion
You're
is
good cop, I'm bad cop. If it's not
always,
clear, if you
always.
have not read the room yet, audience, clearly this
Yeah.
is what's happening.
We
Sorry.
always end up in these roles.
Proceed.
Okay, so unprepared practitioners, I think, because I think a lot of them, the passion is there, the drive is there, the wanting to help is there, the sincerity is there, and I think what's maybe missing in a part of this, and it was missing for me when I started out, and a lot of people that I know that have passed the 20-year mark in this work often also say it was missing for them at one point as well, is that willingness to self-develop. And I'm not even speaking in a talent or skills way, specific, like I'm talking like specifically a personal development, spiritual development, your relationship with the
Right.
universe around you and yourself and your life development. And I think this is something that is hugely missing in with a lot of people, because healers, and whether they're healers through mediumship like me or other types, I think one thing that we often are missing as a component in who we are, especially until we've had at least our third burnout, is our wanting to also heal ourselves. Because I think people who are hardwired for service are hardwired to not really look at themselves. There's an element of wanting to help other people, but what ends up happening eventually to all of us is that we end up hitting a wall of burnout at least once. I think I was in my third or fourth burnout before I realized, hey, I actually need to help myself if I'm actually going to be able to help other people. So, I think that's one thing that I see hugely lacking, is especially in the healing and coaching worlds. It's a lot of people wanting to give but not receive their own medicine or advice or whatever. And I think that's a huge challenge. That's a huge challenge. And I think we will see that shift, because all of these newer practitioners, the less experienced ones, are either going to fly or they're going to fall. And the falling, I think, in this sense, would be realizing that, hey, this is not as easy as it appears to be to support ourselves on, because it's very taxing mentally and emotionally and physically. And, also there's like a psychic every 2 seconds somewhere.
And the thing is I think that because, and I do believe this, I know that sometimes it doesn't sound like I believe this. I do believe that we are going through a process of a raising of consciousness on this planet. But I believe it is something much more organic. It is not manual. It is
No,
not a situation where everyone runs out and get a certificate and activates each other and talks about the matrix.
that's shit
I,
drives me.
this is a period where it's sort of like, look, the organic and the artificial clash.
Yes.
And I think that we've hit a point, and I can clock it back to about 2019, 2020, where the experiment of manual waking up out of the matrix, that kind of thing, um, the death knell rungeth for
Hmm.
it. Now, that doesn't mean an awakening and an elevation of consciousness is done. No,
No.
but a distortion of that process is certainly done. And I think that if a person is desirous of going out and being of service, and whether they're being a healer or a reader, now I differentiate the two. I never call myself a healer. Some people kind of project that onto me because they associate that with other readers who claim
You're
that all
you're
readers are
so
healers.
damn good. That's why they're putting it on you, Nico, for sure. Yeah.
But it can't all be about healing anyway.
No, no, it can't. It can't.
I mean, if you make it all about healing, then you're kind of creating an external locus of control, and that external locus of control is all about the wound of the day. So it can't be all about healing.
No,
I
I
think,
I agree with you
you know,
completely.
I think that when you want to go into service, and I'm speaking to the people that really do feel it, you're on, your gifts, they work, you can clock them, you can demonstrate them, you can invoke them whenever you want, and they're in your control and you're aware you have them. Those are the people I'm talking about, because that's the first thing, in my opinion, you need to achieve if you're going to do this. If you want to help people, you've got to know how you work, because this isn't a religion. We're not all here to be healers.
No.
Some of us are slayers, some of us are, some of us are teachers, some of us are alchemists, some of us are, working with more elemental or nature consciousness. Some people are working with records and past lives and the Akashic and karma. They're every different, sort of collection of souls is going to have its collection of experts, its collection of specialists in it. So I think identifying what your specialization is comes next. First, be on, master and control your abilities, know how to invoke them whenever you want, so that you don't have to be like, okay, well, I need to hide behind, this idea of, well, I'm just trying to master what people are looking for. Be careful of that. Sometimes you are going to be offering things that people need, right? The way I read tarot, I don't coddle. I don't hide from negative reactions, because I don't offer myself as a therapist. I'm not trained to be a psychotherapist. And I know there are a lot of people out there who believe that the spiritual self-help personal development world was like kind of a way to democratize psychiatric care. I don't agree with that at all.
I don't either.
I think that if you are going to do this, you have to take it seriously as a spiritual and magical art and already know that you have it.
But here's the thing: you do the bad cop so well because you're still so supportive of genuine, authentic people, which I think is awesome.
I think that if somebody took what I said personally,
Mm.
I would say, look, a lot of my intensity around that isn't really about the people who bought into it. It's about the people who propagated it.
Yeah, and
So
fair enough. I think our world. Well, let's break it down a little further. So, if we look at the state of our world, right, at a social level, like so many people are struggling, they're suffering. There's a whole lot of systems that are really messed up and need to be broken anyway. And I think if we see the people that people are coming from that looking for something better for themselves, something higher, even people honestly who are looking just to make some cash, like I get it. Is it right? No. I think I get it at a compassionate level. Like, I think our world is in such a desperate state that people are simultaneously looking for a connection with something higher, but also looking to survive. And
yeah,
so I think with all of that going on, and seeking for their own unique brand of who they are, of their soul expression on earth, if you want to get fancy about it, I think people are seeking all of these things simultaneously. And I think this is a huge reason of why we're seeing such huge rushes in new practitioners out there that may not be quite ready yet, or maybe never will be, to do this work. And so I do see it from a compassionate place. Do I also see it as a problem? Yes, I do. I think
yeah,
my perspective on it is like, hey, we need to just make sure that if we're going to stick our shingle out, that we have had some level of mastery of our own skill, exactly what you said. And one of the things that concerns me at a very technical level with a lot of people is, I teach development, right? And one of the things that I always think is really important is to teach people how to feel their own energy, how to be aware of their own dynamic. And one thing that I've noticed with a lot of practitioners out there is they're not able to clock where they're at in relation energetically to their space, the work they're doing. And I think that's when we run into some serious problems, because we can get all kinds of weird attachments and absorbing things and
And that
resonate.
to me is a sign that somebody is not ready.
Yeah, and
You can't,
totally.
I don't think it's ethical to be
No,
like, I
no.
got bonked on the head one day,
Mm.
and then I lost my job or got divorced, called it a spiritual awakening, and decided that I'm going to save the world
Yeah.
and monetize my education process, monetize my tutorial experience while I go through it. I
Yeah.
don't think that's ethical at all. I
No.
actually think that first off, because we do live in a world where a lot of things are now very algorithmically controlled,
Mm.
and people are looking for relatable over authentic
Yes.
because, authenticity and relatability can often clash with one
They
another.
they can. They can.
And it can be kind of an impossible ask to look for authenticity in any kind of situation or relationship and want something 100% relatable.
Yeah.
People are going about their practice or their service in a way to, yeah, maybe they're coming from survival reasons.
Mm.
I have compassion for that. I do. I don't have patience, but I have compassion for it. I
Yeah.
understand. I do have empathy, but I don't let my empathy take over my ability to discern.
Yes. As we can't, because then otherwise we end up in this mess, right?
And I don't let my empathy make me lie for people.
No. No, me either.
There is a low key air of unintentional, or in some cases deliberate, manipulation in a situation like that. If you are in a situation where your abilities are unclear to you
Mm.
and they don't even exist in a way where you can actually invoke them and put them to use, and so you're hiding behind the veil of making people feel good, you're just kind of you can't be medicine, so you'll settle for being the painkiller.
Mm.
I think that you should step down.
I I agree with that, and I think maybe a natural segue is for people to figure out which one of those they might be in the
Yeah.
moment, because I think even I mean, even if look at the world of pharmacology for a second.
Yeah.
People use the word medicine for everything, right? It's a term that people throw around. I personally have always hated that, because to me, a medicine is curative,
Yeah.
but not all medications are cures. Some of them are treatments. And so maybe what would be useful, I think, in general, is for people to be able to understand the difference in what they're providing. And I think there are times where painkillers are what people need, but there are lots of times where medicine is what they need. And I think in terms of doing a reading should not be a painkiller at
No,
all,
no,
ever.
I think when you're doing readings, you are looking, and again, this might just be very old school of me, but I do not like the new school. I think that readings should be about information.
Yes.
Readings
Well,
should
that
be about enlightenment.
yes, agreed.
Readings should be about strategy and
Mm.
solution-oriented exploration.
Yeah,
And I think that going into a space where it's just about examining emotions and processing all of the time,
that's more therapy.
and a waste of a reading.
Yeah. I
And
think I
you
think
know,
so too.
it's again hot takes, hot sizzling, surly tired Nico takes. Um, I think that if you are, and I think also for those of you who enjoy getting readings, one of the things I always say to people, look at that person's body of work,
Mm.
especially nowadays when it comes to discernment. Does this person have anything to say beyond the realms of what they claim to be offering? If
Mm.
there's a tarot reader on YouTube and all they do is have tarot and all you see is kind of like cleavage and like 4-inch nails talking about a twin flame,
Mm.
hundreds of videos,
Yeah.
I do not think that this person is doing a justice to their craft. I don't think this person is in it with the care and empathy that you are so generously hoping that they have, Matthew. I don't think that they are doing this with any kind of real concept of what they're doing.
Mm.
And so at best, I'm like, all right, you are probably on your own healing journey, but are still not qualified to do this work. And at
Mm.
worst, you are a toxic, manipulative person who found an easy way to make money from home.
I have such a hard time, but I will, to be fair, I am so bad at seeing the bad in in anybody, like to the point where it's, probably a problem.
I think it has to do with the difference in our missions.
I think so too. I think,
Like for me, it's these are the people that pillage this culture.
yeah,
To me, it's no different than the people who decided to turn it into this sort of half-baked political conspirituality. It's all the same to me.
yeah,
And I think that there are even people that I know and that I deeply love that are really gifted,
mm,
more powerful than me, that are just living in a space of doubt
mm,
because at some point they might have gotten swallowed up or misled or manipulated by this kind of thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
this is what it is and this is what it's all about. But the truth of the matter is that no, we're actually in a place now where the organic, right, the truly spiritual, the truly deep, the truly active is taking its territory back. And I think that that's just maybe the way I can seem a bit so intense is because it's like I'm on the front lines of that one.
One thing I will say, because it's just making me think of this. I just also found a dime on my desk. Thank you,
Okay.
whoever
Too
that was
fancy.
from. um,
Times,
dimes.
many times.
The first time I ever like everyone was getting all these dimes forever, and then the first time I ever got one was like a few years ago, and I got in my car and I went to
Mhm.
put my seatbelt on. It was sitting on my top of my leg, like it was
Yeah.
the weird. Anyway, that's a whole other whole other video. But yeah, no, I think one thing that I'm thinking of that a friend said to me a long time ago, and I think it rings true, is like if somebody's really meant to do this work, they will have lineups down the block. If they are not, then they could be the most talented person on the planet. If they're really not meant to do it, it's not going to happen. It'll fall off at some point. Um,
I have to disagree with that.
our first disagreement. I'm so excited. Let's talk about it.
Because we are riding the well, it's ending, but the wave of a trend,
Yeah,
you know, there are a lot of people who get a lot of attention for this and
that's
have
true.
people lining up around the block because they've mastered the ability to monetize their wounds
Yes.
and to capitalize on the wounds of others.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I think that sometimes we need to challenge some new age ideas and beliefs.
Mm,
It's kind of like when people say, "Oh, you are where you're supposed to be and everything's perfect."
mm.
Well, what if that person's been sitting in front of the TV for 20 years?
Yeah.
What if that person is locked in an abusive marriage? What if that person, it's like, oh well, you are where you're supposed to be and everything's where it's supposed to be and everything's perfect. No, we have control.
Yeah. I
We have control, we have agency, we have volition. And sometimes other people might use their agency and their volition to ill ends.
mm.
And we have to kind of keep that in mind. I'm not saying that to like just overtly like attack your friend or anything. I don't
No.
want to sound like
Sure.
it because my tone is very like but it's I have to respectfully disagree.
Well, I think that what do I think? I think that you're not wrong, but I also don't think she was wrong either. I think she see I from what I get, I think she was seeing it more as a long game, right? Situation. So like I think yes, people can be great at marketing. They can be excellent at monetizing things in crappy ways, but I do think eventually the truth catches up with people. I don't know that anybody ever really gets away with anything.
Oh
And
no, we're going through that reform right now.
exactly,
In
yeah.
fact, I think, as you were saying that, I was kind of like, well, I wish I knew when she might have said this. Because if your friend said that 10 years ago,
Oh, it was at least 10 years
yeah,
ago.
she would have been totally right. But if she was referring to 2018 or 2019 or even
Oh, this
2020,
was
she'd be totally wrong.
yeah, she's in her gosh, she's got to be in her 70s. She's been doing it five ever.
Right.
And so this was probably like, yeah, 10, 15 plus years
Oh,
ago. I think it is such a hard thing, and I think the views that we're both coming to the table with on this, I think are not different, but I think we're seeing, seeing it from different angles, which I think is really cool. Like for me, I see anytime somebody does something, even if it's totally intentionally crappy, I always see the pain behind people's actions, I guess you could say, or the lack behind their desperation. And I think that's what I chalk a lot of it up to. Like I think yes, we have to reclaim our space, right? The space of this work. And we have to do our best to, if we're called to help guide and teach the new wave of people coming in, if that's our path to do so. But I also feel like this is such a much bigger problem. And I think even outside of our world of weirdness, right? Spirituality and metaphysics and all those things, magic. I think outside of that, I think the same thing is happening across the board. And I think that this is a bigger sign of what our world is going through and what people are experiencing. And my heart kind of breaks a little bit when I think about it. I've been in some very desperate spaces in my own life, mentally, emotionally, physically, monetarily, sometimes even.
yeah.
And I get it. But I think the bigger question, and for those of us who are really in service to help the world, is how can we fix this at a level larger than just our spiritual path and the type of arts that we practice. I think if we're really of service, then we're being called to serve humanity on a very large scale that goes beyond just what we do with our tarot cards.
I think that at that point it comes down to conscientiousness and authenticity.
I think so too.
You
I
know,
think
I think that you are very good at being conscientious of the motivations to maybe, make these choices,
yeah.
um, even if you don't agree with them. I think
Yeah.
you're very, very aware of them. I think, though, that sometimes you hide your authenticity behind your conscientiousness. And I
I
think, and I'm not saying that in a judgmental way.
No,
I'm
no, I'm not taking it that
you
way.
you are going like I'm whoa. No, you're kind of more like, look, I'm aware that, it's like I can understand what would drive a person to do this, and I have empathy for that.
Yeah.
That's you, and I get that. I think that you represent a very kind population of this group of naturals that is sort of like, look, these people have been, screwed up by the world, screwed up by life, and screwed up by the screwing up of this community.
Totally.
And you have a lot of care and a lot of kindness for them and a lot of patience, which I envy. We've both been put through very different experiences by this community, though.
100%. Yeah, and
And I
only
think, I th-
experience it.
yeah, and, it's kind of like, all right, well, here's Matthew coming in as somebody who does consider himself a healer and a part of a healing effort and a healing movement and a healing imperative, especially when it comes to dealing with people. And then here comes Nico, this, relic of the ancient world, that is coming back to kind of command reverence for all things magical and multidimensional, so that people can not just talk about it and speculate about it, but live it. And I think that, yeah, there has to be a respect for both.
100%.
But I think that what we've done and what I've observed is that we've kind of let the wounded beginners control the narrative,
Yeah,
and profiteers, narcissists, histrionics, and misinformation have been allowed to run rampant.
mm, agreed.
And I think that when you have wounded beginners, and again, I'm not saying that to disparage them, I'm saying that with empathy as well, that have not developed a healthy amount of discernment, that have not developed an independent and intimate relationship with their own spirituality, their own practice, their own higher self, their own multidimensional expanse, their oversoul, everything. At some point, the practice gets handed over to the profiteers, the narcissists, and the histrionics, and the misinformers.
Yeah.
Now, I think that happened again, a few years back, but I think that, I keep thinking 2015 in particular, but I think because there was a balance before that, and then it just tipped. But I think that right now, I think we need to kind of freak people out, not freak people out and talk about governments and, and all this kind of stuff, but really kind of go into like, why are you still afraid? Like, one of the things I always observe, why are you afraid of magic?
Mm.
Really? You believe this person can talk to dead people. You believe that I can read the future with cards and looking at celestial bodies in the sky. You believe in past lives. You believe in visually experiencing of an alternate self. Why are you afraid of magic? I think that we need to actually go there with these conversations.
I
And
think you. I
you
think so.
know, we've sometimes you go too slow and the effort doesn't make a damn at all.
Yeah.
If I went to the gym once a month
You're going to
for
be
a
sore
year,
for 2 days a month. That's that's about all
that's
that's going to happen.
it's not going anywhere. It's not going
Yeah.
to happen. And yet at the same time, I could, through confirmation bias, go find a community, people who are going to tell me, you are where you're supposed to be. Everything as it's supposed to be. You agreed to this, and so on and so forth. No one has control. No one has this. Lies my guru told me. That's the kind of the question. It's like, lies my guru told me. Maybe I'll write a book called
I
Lies.
was just going to say you need to write a book with that as a
I mean, I
title.
don't have gurus though.
Neither do I.
A
In fact,
guru, a guru walks into my life, I set them on fire. Like,
yeah,
it's not.
same. I actually I personally have such a detest for that word. So people have tried to throw that word on me a million times in my career, and
Yeah.
I hate it. And the reason I hate it is because like, so how can I say this? I, in some ways, have my SHIT together very perfectly. In
Oh,
other ways, I do not. But I know I know what stuff I have together, what stuff I don't have together, which I think, you know, to throw back to how do we know when we're ready? I think that self-awareness is very key in this work. Do I think somebody has to be perfectly healed and master their life to help people?
no,
Absolutely not.
no,
But
absolutely not. Nobody has to be perfect.
no.
You
But
don't
do
have to be a 4-degree black belt, but you do need to at least be at the blue
you at
range.
least need to know what your skeletons are, right? You have to at least know that. And I'm speaking from a healing perspective. If you're going to go and
It was like, hold on, this is healing. We're talking about healing, right?
this is a healing perspective. Like, if you have to be comfortable crawling into your own closet with your own skeletons, you've got to know their names
Right.
and you've got to hang out with them and have tea with them and all of that. If you can do that, then I think, you can start, unfolding your path in service for sure. But I think, I think I have no idea what I was going to say. I'm totally
Well,
tangent.
I think if you're going to do this and be of service, I think maybe we just got to cut to the quick and go, all right, what's your motivation to do this?
Exactly.
Is this who you are, or are you trying to build a person to step into? If it's the
Exactly.
latter, stop.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
You know what? I think you nailed it. Because the last thing I would want is for people to hear us talk and say, "Well, I started this a year ago, and but I'm naturally skilled at it, and like I'm not perfect yet. Should I not be doing this?" And I think no. If your heart is in the right place, you have a level of self-awareness. You've been able to master your skill. I say master. The truth is, our skills are always growing. But as long as you can master your starting point, I think then that's cool. I think, like you just said, if the motivations are anything other than you feel truly called and drawn to do it, to be of service and help the world, then yeah, maybe like wait, sit this one out.
Well,
Uh,
here's the thing. Do you know how you're going to help?
right?
Do you know how you are going to help? Do you know how you are going to be of service? Are you going to charge people while you figure it out? You don't want to do that.
No, you at least have to have a starting point, right? Like, I mean, I think for a lot of us, the way that we are in service does change over time, just as a natural evolution is who we are as people.
Yeah, of course.
But I think you at least have to know where, yeah, like you said, you've got to know what you're going to do. I know for me, it was definitely readings. I mean, it came so naturally to me. I was reading tarot cards. I didn't even know what the cards meant, but they were talking to me. Later, I found out that I was receiving the information using the cards more like a crystal ball
Yeah.
as a focus.
Where you can like reach into them. It's almost like a 3D.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like parts of the pictures were listed. It was about 10 years after that I even really knew what the cards meant traditionally, the traditional meanings of the cards. But I think that's an example of somebody who comes to it very naturally. We can pick up whatever tool and just work with it. Yeah, but I think it is important for people to do the due diligence and their own personal work to figure out, as you said, what their motivations are, what I've said, what your awareness level is of yourself.
Know
Um,
thyself. Very
exactly.
classic,
You
right?
you have
Know thyself. If you don't know who you are, don't tell other people how to go about anything. You know,
totally.
if
And
you don't know who you are, don't act like you know what will help. You know, it's sort of like,
one thing that I've noticed that drives me next level crazy that I have seen many times, like, and this is one thing that I always really try to address a lot anytime I'm teaching anything, is the concept of projection, right? And projection comes from a lack of self-awareness more than anything else, because, and for anyone who doesn't know what projection is, like, picture a tarot reader or a psychic or a medium or whoever, and they're going through a divorce. So all of their clients either are or will go through a divorce, whether they are actually not, doesn't matter, that
and
person,
all men suck.
and all men suck. Yeah. Or all women or whatever.
Right.
But I think those are the dangers that we're talking about, at least in part, is if you don't have a mastery of yourself on some level, at least know what your problems are first. They don't have to be fixed, but you got to be working on it.
Yeah.
Um, then I think you're at risk for that. And that's where the real misleading people is going to end up coming from, is like your projections or your lack of due diligence for your own life and for the craft that you're working in. And I think that can definitely lead people astray, especially if you imagine going to see a psychic and all they're doing is projecting their own stuff on you, but you're not a psychic or a medium or a tarot reader. And so you're going there earnestly seeking some kind of guidance, assistance, information, direction, whatever strategy. And so you're getting fed all of this stuff, which could be very alarming, right? And scary and probably inaccurate. And so then the
Yeah.
person is taking to heart these concepts that, anyway, the
Well,
other
if
thing that,
it's a projection, it's not psychic anymore.
no, it's not at
Not.
all. It's
It's and again, that kind of goes into the whole like, all right, do you know the difference between your intuition or your psychic abilities and your emotional reasoning? Right? Because
exactly.
emotional reasoning, that's, for those of you who don't know, that's a cognitive distortion. It's the reasoning that goes, well, the more intensely something makes me feel emotionally, the more true it must be. But that's not true, especially if you are coming from a place where it's like your issues are driving the car. And so, what if you say we're doing a reading for somebody who was like, you know, I want to go no contact with a parent, with a
Yes.
toxic parent. But you are in a situation where you just had a nasty falling out with one of your kids,
Mm,
and maybe it's not that bad, but it's sort of like you're in a bad place with one of your kids. If you let what you want inform what you tell the person, right, through that projection, but also that emotional reasoning, you're not giving a psychic reading anymore. I think that we have to come to a, you might go, oh no, you can't, don't stay with that toxic parent, or stay with that toxic partner, or stay in that broken relationship, or stay at that unhealthy family dynamic. Stay, because I am terrified of that. I'm getting a case of that could have been me's. Everyone has their own reality. Everyone has their own life they're going through. And if you can't respect that each journey is going to be different because you don't know yourself, stop reading.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. And these are the exact issues that I think, these are the big risks, I think, right? Of people entering this world at some kind of professional level when they don't have that self-awareness. And I think that's what scares me more than anything else, I think, is just, and I've seen it so many times. Um, exactly almost the exact example that you've just given. I've seen that unfold a million different times, a million different ways. And, it is terrifying because the thing is, and this is true, and I think anyone who's been doing this work for a long time would agree with this, is when people end up in our office, they're not usually in a good space. They've already done everything that they could think of to try to help themselves, and it just hasn't worked. Right. Like, I generally, at least for me, by the time people end up in my office, they've tried a lot of things to try and help themselves. And so,
Right.
a lot of the time we
They've
can
hit
be,
the wall already.
they've
Yeah.
hit a wall, for whatever reason. And so I think that if somebody is doing this work and they're getting people who are in these very fragile states that require a lot of, compassion and understanding and patience, I think that that's just as powerfully as somebody could be helped, they could be harmed.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we've really got to be cognizant of when we're stepping into this.
The I think that what needs to happen at that point about, look, we are consulting
Mm.
higher levels of consciousness here. And the social conditioning to get emotionally involved in what's going on in the situation needs to be out the window.
Right.
I think integrity is now in this situation. Look, what kind of reader, what kind of healer are you? Are you here to help and solve the problem, or are you here to make somebody feel better? Because sometimes those don't always coincide.
No, they really they
And,
really don't.
and sometimes people might just be asking for a pick me up. Um, I personally, I always try to deliver my messages with compassion, but I'm not very good at that.
I think you are.
Tell.
I think you are. I can speak. I've been a client of yours. That's how we met.
That's true.
And actually, I think you are compassionate. Do I think you are very direct? Yes, you are very direct. But it doesn't come like it's never in me receiving your readings from you. I've never felt like put in a super uncomfortable spotlight. It has been incredibly accurate, scarily accurate sometimes. And but it's always, like you mentioned, like very solution strategy oriented. And I think that's a beautiful thing about you. I don't think your readings lack compassion at all. I think they're not sugary, they're not sweet, and you're not afraid to tell people what you see. But the way that you deliver it, at least in my own experience, has always been in a very helpful way. It hasn't,
Well,
been.
and thank you. I think that maybe that's also maybe the thing that we need to ask. All right, is it helpful? Are
Yeah,
you being helpful?
truly helpful.
Truly helpful, and being a distraction
Mm.
and being a break from a difficult reality can be helpful.
Yeah, sometimes
Being an escape
is not.
is not helpful. And I think that, when people are rewarded for providing the distraction and the escape, um, again, it just makes me think of an abuse
Yeah.
of these arts. It's an abuse. And I think that or maybe not even abused, because they're not even being invoked. It's really just more of an insult.
Hmm.
You said I'm not sugary. There you go.
No, you are.
Chocolate.
What I like about you. I don't think I'm sugary either, but I think that I'm very. I don't know. I don't know what the word is. Do I sugarcoat things? Absolutely not. But I think for me, like when I do readings or I, do things like this, I think my ultimate goal is always to be helpful, right? To bring information across in a way where the person can use it in some way,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, but I think our tones are different.
I
There's
think I
no
think that,
denying.
oh well, hey, tone. Okay. Tone. If you are tone sensitive, yeah, someone like me is probably gonna be a huge problem for you. But can you hear sincerity?
Yeah, and
And
that's
are you sincere?
exactly. Those are huge important things. Hugely.
I know that you're sincere. Somebody else who I might already know is just kind of saying what I think that they would probably be trying to say because they think that's what I want to hear, or they care about what someone else is going to hear. I can pick up on that right away. That's
Yeah.
not psychic anyway. That's just reading the room. That's just inference.
Yes.
But I think that and if I psychically leaned into it, I would probably just find all kinds of stuff. But the I think that if you can be sincere, if you are at the point where you are sincere, then yeah, that's something to have in your toolkit as well, because sincerity is crucial for everything.
It is, and not just in this work, but in general, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't ask for an honest relationship with the universe if we're not willing to give one. It just
You
does.
can't have an honest relationship with another person if you don't know who you are.
Oh,
You can't have an honest relationship with anyone if you're not a sincere person. That's
ex-
the challenge with people pleasers.
yeah,
You know,
totally. And I was a people pleaser at one time in my
me
life. Like
too.
I
Me too.
the word
Maybe not.
no, like I would rather choke on it than say it,
Yeah.
right? But I think I don't know about you, but it like I went through and continue to struggle with sometimes some significant chronic illnesses. And I think when I started going on that journey, that people pleaser side went right out the window because I no longer had the energy to do it. I didn't have the energy to be anything other than super authentic
Yeah.
because everything was just too much, and I had that whole experience of the veneer cracking and
Well,
it's uncomfortable.
people pleasing can kind of mess with your motivations and the
a
authenticity of
hundred
your emotional
percent
motivations. If you're, I think that here's the thing. Case in point, if you're coming out as a reader or a spiritual practitioner with whatever you're doing, are you, if you're motivated to make people happy, be careful with that.
Yes.
Um, or put people in a good mood. Be careful with that. Because here's the thing, you might not be able to put somebody in a good mood and help them all in one instance. You might put them in a very bad mood. I've had people um, not like the readings I gave them. And yet, for those who actually did kind of make peace with the process, they came back and they're like, hey, I didn't like what you told me before. You said that this was going to be a bad job, or you told me to stay the hell away from that woman, or whatever. I didn't listen. It turned out to be exactly what you warned me about, and it was a horrible job, and I quit in a month, or it was a toxic, unstable relationship. Can we talk again and see, what I can do now? Um, and it's like, all right, well, here's how you go forward. And then that person can be brought to some kind of happiness. But I think that if you are trying to helping and pleasing do not occur in the same instance. So you've got to be very, very clear. If this is, are you providing a spiritual experience or are you providing an emotional experience?
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to draw a distinction in that. Some people are way, way, way too identified with their emotions. And I think that that gets them into a lot of trouble. I'm not saying be rigid, again, the ideal in every spiritual path is balance in the hemispheres, right? Equal parts left brain, equal parts right brain. If you are arguing that if you are the kind of person who's like, the right brain's better, the left brain's better, the masculine's better, the feminine's better, if you are still there, first off, you're not going to be of much use to anybody anywhere. You're just kind of a drone. But I think that if you are in a space where you are trying to please somebody or put a smile on their face, you might not be motivated to really help them. I used to say, back when I was starting out on YouTube, because there were people like, how can you deliver bad readings? And I'm like, wait, like bad as in they're not good? Like they're not accurate? Like, please tell me what makes them bad. Don't just say they're bad. What's wrong? And they're like, no, like they're accurate, but you only talk about negative stuff. I'm like, no, I don't just only talk about negative stuff. It's just that I don't hide when negative stuff happens.
Yeah.
And that comes from philosophy of, look, if I'm about to step off a curb and a bus is coming, I want someone to say, hey, Nico, watch out because I care about you, not love and light because I care about looking good.
Yes. Yeah.
Check your motivations. If you're more interested in a person's liking you or liking the experience they had with you more than the magic and the service that you're here to offer, your motivations need to go through a bit of rehab.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you've summed it up. I think it really does come down to that, that keeping yourself in check, making sure that you know yourself, making sure that you have some level of mastery, but at least your starting point of skill sets.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna see that. Like you said, I think a lot of the fake is starting to crack and crumble. Like makeup doesn't last forever, right? It eventually
No,
kind
no, no. And some of them look like a bridesmaid from 1997
of
who hasn't been home since the wedding. Just rough,
yeah. Very
rough,
totally.
you know, just rough. But no, yeah, we kind of went all over the place with this
We
one.
did. You know what? That's one of the things I love when we do these video chats
Yeah.
together. We cover a very broad range, so I'm excited to see whatever we're going to come up with next. I think it's going to
Maybe a video where it's like, okay, how do you know when you're when you're really ready? Like,
for real. Yeah.
as opposed to this was more of a who should and who shouldn't, which I think
Yeah.
is also very valuable.
Yeah, I think so too.
So maybe that'll be an opening to it. Who should?
Yeah,
Who
I
shouldn't?
think
And then
I think
next time we'll come back to, okay, if you know you should, here's how you get started.
yeah,
You
actually,
know?
you know what? That I think would be really cool because I do think there are a lot of super genuine people. If I'm being totally honest, I think at least the ones that I have had the pleasure of meeting and seeing and working with myself, I think they're 99% genuine people. I think that very loud, small percentage is just happens to be very visible and very good.
Very propped. Yeah, there's maybe you're right. Maybe there's an outsized influence,
I
but
think I honestly think there is. And like I said, I can only speak from my own experience. And
then they
and
need to then they need to lose that space and give it to
yeah.
more of that 99% you're talking about.
Yeah, because I think most of the people entering this work are genuine. And are they the best prepared? Not necessarily. Do they have a lot of work they need to do on themselves before they really should be putting themselves out there? Yes. But do I think a lot of their heart is in the right place? I think it is. But like I said, I have a hard time seeing the crappy motivations of people sometimes. But I really do think most of them are,
I well, and I get reading. I give readings to people who want to get into this,
yeah,
and there are people who are truly sincere, and I'm like, you could do it.
yeah. I think so. I
When
think so.
the people who come going, I want to get into healing. What should I do?
Mm.
That's where I say,
Maybe,
maybe
maybe to
no,
figure it
maybe
out.
not right now. Maybe and that's obviously personal, and then I'll do the reading, and the reading will be like, hey, well, look, if you wanted to train this, go here. If you want to
Yeah.
train this, go here. If you want to train this, go here. I'll help you find what could be naturally good for you.
Yeah.
But I think that if you are just looking to run out and Google a bunch of spiritual trivia and make a TikTok,
Yeah, no,
You're going to
definitely.
have to find someone who's not acting, you're going to have to find a reader who isn't talking to spirit, because spirit's going to say, no, not right now. You're going to have to find a reader who is faking it to help you fake it.
And I think, yeah, I don't know. I really hope that all of the different types of helpers in this world, whether they're in our industry or work path or, our space or another one,
Yeah.
my hope is that just everybody will let go of any inauthenticity and insincerity and just like work from their heart if they really truly want to help the world.
Yeah.
That we all just do our very best to do that, in whatever way we are called to do it. I think it's important, but also to see that accumulating useful tools is vital, whether you're going to be a mystic or a doctor or a politician or a lawyer or
Well, and don't get complacent. You can't stop learning. You
yeah,
can't stop growing. You can't stop pivoting.
no,
You can't stop building. If you want to read, how do you read?
yeah.
Will come next. Or how do you do this? Maybe we just tackled too broad a topic to have it for one video.
I think that would be fun though, and I think it would be genuinely helpful for people that are truly being called to
Yeah. Yeah.
this work. I'd be so down to have that conversation for sure.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for joining me again. I apologize for keeping you over on time, and I thank you very much for starting an hour late as per my begging on Facebook, because I ended up getting thrown off with something else earlier today. It's always a pleasure having you around, and yeah, we'll be back again, guys, with more deep talks and a bit more of an examination on, well, how do you know if you're ready, as opposed to a what do you need to know about not being ready at all, which is basically what this video turned into.
It totally did, and thank you. But you're thanking me for pushing this back an hour. I'm going to thank you for pushing this back 3 months because this is
Oh,
not the first time that we've tried to organize this talk.
that's true.
So thank you, and thank you for having me on your channel. As always, it is a true pleasure to work with you. And I like that we kind of take things from we have saying similar things, but from different perspectives, and I always value that, even if
I
we don't
think
always totally agree. I think it's
there's,
awesome.
well, it's you're all about healing, and the truth of the matter is that healing comes in different forms.
100%.
Healing can be restoring tissue, regenerating vitality, but it can also be about destroying disease.
Yeah.
And we all embody different archetypes to do what,
Yeah.
the three primary forces, right? The creator, the healer, the sustainer, and the fighter and the slayer. And we all have all three within us. It's just that sometimes we embody one more than the other two. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to turn off the recording now. Thank you so much for sitting through this. If you made it all the way through to the end, I will see you all again soon. And of course, if you do not know Matthew Stapley, please check him out. He's on Facebook. You just type in Matthew Stapley, Psychic Medium. He's right there. And I'll put links, of course, in the down bar below. All right. All right. Y'all take care and see you again soon.